Senbet Salam, Shabbat Shalom. This is the 17th Senbet or Shabbat within our order, within the true order of the Melchizedek of the line of Judah Society. And as you should be aware of, this is 2003 according to the Western calculation of time, and we're in the Ethiopic year 7503. This is the Meheret, the Ameta Meheret, the year of mercy, during the time of mercy. Wercheter, the month of the Ethiopic month of Ter, Zemene Lukas Wenglawi, the year of Luke the evangelist, also known as the Hulet she sourced, or the Haya Meto sourced. Ameta Mehereta Wercheter Zemene Lukas Wenglawi. Now, we want to show you this right here. This is the Ethiopian calendar for 2003, one that we highly favor, and it's from the Nubura Id of Aksum, Arimius or Arimius Kabeda Wolde Jesus of the Ethiopia Kingdom of God ministry. And we're trying to really bring together our calendars, our timekeeping. This is very important for us to recognize the time. So we've been looking at many signs and seeing many signs of the time. So we have to know both the signs and the time. Now, the day in the Western is the 22nd. For 2003. This is the Senbet, the Sabbatical studies and Sabbatical reading for the Sabbath, the 17th Yoter. You can consult the guide on page 5 of your Samantawi Senbet Orit Nibab, or the Minbab. Now, according to the month of Ter, the Ethiopian month of Ter is Asara Arat, or it's the 14th day of the Ethiopic month, which is the 22nd day of January. And if you pay attention to the particular calendar we have here, it's called Inberem. It's mentioned that Inberem Lik Kahinat Aksum, or the high priest of Aksum, known as Inberem, in the year Be Sost Meto Haya Amist, or in 325 Ameta Meheret Ye Ethiopiana Serate Beta Christian Indi Mwala Yaderge, that the order of the Beta Christian, the order of the house of the true Christians, or the Ethiopic church, was fulfilled. In other words, the order of the Beta Christian, the Serate Beta Christian, and Di Mwala Yaderge. There are other days that are observed, as a more detailed study of this particular chart will show, but we thought this was interesting when we consulted the Nubura Id Arimius Kabeda, or the Yesus's Ethiopia Kingdom of God work. When we get to the footnote, it says here at the footnote, and all this is relevant to our sabbatical studies. All this is very, very relevant to Yesamantawi Senbet Orit Nibab, or the Sabbath readings and the Sabbath feedings. So here at the bottom, this is by Marinya. We'll try to translate as best as possible. It says, Muse Kagibt Ka Sidet Wode Chop Ia Metito, Sele Chop Iawi Neta Ka Chop Iawi Kahin, Ka Yotor Temro Kamene Behwala, Ye Kahinuna Seit Lich, Si Paranagaba, የአማቱን በጎች ሲጠብቅ ሳለም እነሆ እግዚአብሔር ተገለጾለት ያዘዘውን ሁሉ በፈጸሙ ኢትዮጵያዊነትን መቀበሉ እውን ሆኗል። ከዚህ ኢትዮጵያዊነቱ የተነሳም የኋላ ኋላ በወንድሙና በእህቱ ሳይቀር ከእስራኤል ሕዝብ በደል እንደደረሰበት ተጽፏል። ሙሴና የእስራኤል ሕዝብ ገና በምድረ በዳ ሰፍረው ሳሉ የሚያቃጥልና ሌላ መስዋዕትን ለእግዚአብሔር በማቅረብ ሥርዓተ ክህነትና ስለ ሕዝብ አስተዳደርና ፍትህ አሰጣጥም በማስተማር ሥርዓተ መንግሥትን አመቱ ዮቶር ለሙሴና ለአሮን ለሕዝቡ ሽማግሌዎችም ሁሉ ማሳየቱ በቅዱሳት መጻሕፍት ተመዝግቧል። And then it gives us the quotes, Ze'at, which is the book of the Ethiopic Exodus, or the book of Shemot, chapter 3, verses 1 to 5, chapter 18, verse 1 to verse 27, and Zechulq, or the Ethiopic Numbers, chapter 12, verses 6 to 15. At the bottom it says, Yeter Wor Minbab, or the reading for the month of Ter, this particular Ethiopic month that we are currently in, is Methafe Rutana Ye Matewos Wengel. Now, what is interesting that the Holy Spirit directed us to this in our study of the present Shabbat, or the present Senbet readings and studies, that this is Exodus chapter 18 according to Orit Zemuse, and from 18 to chapter 20, then in the Haftarah, or the Nabiyat, is Isaiah chapter 6 verse 1 to Isaiah chapter 7 verse 6, and Isaiah chapter 9 verse 5 to Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6. And in the Burt Hadash, or the Hadith Kidan, is Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5 verses 8 to verse 20. Now, what's very important, let's just go over this footnote here where it says Moses Kagupt from Egypt as Sidet, in exile from Egypt, what Ethiopia Pt2, that he went to Ethiopia, that when Moses fled from Egypt after the killing of the Egyptian, as he's called in the Bible, after the killing of the Egyptian on behalf of his Ibrawian Wendemoch, that he fled to what Ethiopia Pt2, that he went to Ethiopia and still Ethiopiawi net, and concerning true Ethiopianism and true Ethiopian covenant and truth, Ethiopia Kahin, from the Ethiopian, the Midianite priest, whose name was Yotor, or Jethro, Kayotor Temro, Kamene B'chwala, after he was taught and after he learned from Jethro the true faith and became a true Amanya, after Moses now learns the truth, the wisdom of the Egypts. So he was taught this wisdom of the Egypts by his father-in-law, his Amat, who was named Yotor, Yekahinuna Sata Lij, and the priest's daughter, or girl child, Sipara, or Sipara Geba, that he married Sipara. Now, what's interesting is when you go to, I think, chapter 1, they are the midwives, and one of the midwives, his name is Shipra. And the name Shipra and Sipara, or Zipporah, is basically one and the same name. So there's a very important connection with those two midwives, as well as with Moses' wife and sister, when we put it in the context of the ancient Egyptian wisdom and the ancient mythos, the Kamite mythos. But yeah, Amatuna Begocha Siya Ebik Salem, while Moses shepherded his father-in-law's sheep, the Begoch, Eneho, behold, Egziavihir, the sustainer Tegelas Olet, that Egziavihir, the true God, you understand, was revealed now to Moses, Yazazawino Hulua be Mefetzamu, you understand, all that he was commanded, you understand, to fulfill all that he was commanded, Job Yahweh Netin, and Ethiopian Nesa Mekabalu, that he received the true Kabbalah, or he received the true Ethiopic wisdom, Job Yahweh Netin Mekabalu, Owen Honual. And it became the truth, and he became one of the truthful ones. He was now one of the true ones. You understand? This all begins to explain the background. And now what we learn, and what we've touched on already in another part of this particular study, is that Moses' father-in-law, his Amatu named Yotor, or Jethro, being a Midianite, and the Midianites descended from Abraham, father Abraham. They have a common ancestor in Abraham, and therefore Yotor, or the Midianites of this period and this time, were also not just Ethiopian, but they were Hebrews as well. So the true knowledge of the true God was preserved, you understand, in ancient Ethiopia, from which Moses fled from Egypt. This is how his magic, if we would usually use that, was greater than the magicians of Egypt. And it goes on to state how Kazir Job Yahweh Netua Yetenesam, and from this Ethiopianness, after time, with the exception really of his own family. You understand? Muse's family in this sense now becomes the true, we could say, royalty, or the nobility, the core. Besides them, Ka Israel, his bedel in the Resebet Tetzfual, he writes of the wrongdoing of the people of Israel to receive the truth because of their experience now in Egypt. And at this time in Egypt, there was a false spirituality that had taken over. Now, one will only know this when they really study the religion or religious denominations of Egypt. I often use this comparison for clarity. It's much like today with Christianity. If somebody says, I'm a Christian, you cannot determine what type of Christian they are. And such it was in ancient Egypt. One may have been Egyptian or had worshipped the so-called, according to the god types of ancient Egypt, but that is not enough to determine what the so-called cult or culture or theology was about. This is what confuses a lot of the bias and the racist and the Eurocentric folks, you understand, and the Bible-later folks who try to say, well, all of Egypt was bad, you understand, but then you find areas where Egypt and the Hebrew teaching were one and the same, that the Egyptians and the Hebrews at certain points met eye to eye religiously and spiritually, you understand, but at other points he did not. So this has caused great confusion because what ones don't really recognize are the religious differences, you understand, similar today between ones who say they're Christian, and if you say, oh, so you believe in the Pope, and they say, no, I'm not Roman Catholic, I'm a Christian, I belong to this or that, so forth and so on denomination. But it goes on to say, Moses and Israel, the people of Israel, Gena be midre beda sefro salu, while they were still encamped in the wilderness, be midre beda, you understand, while they still was encamped in the wilderness, Yamiyak atelina, that the burnt and Leila Mesawaitin and the other offerings, Le'egziavihir b'makreb sarata kihnetin. In other words, they they learned about the sacrifices. They were given the sacrifices, the other offerings to present to the true God of the Hebrews, to Exyavi Herlotu Sabhat, to the sustainer, the Sarate Kihnetin, and along with the order of the priesthood, Sila Hizb Astada Derna, the administration concerning the people, the fitte, which we've traced that word already out of ancient Egypt, and from the root in the Ethiopic, the fitte is pata, fitte, the fitte, but in this sense it is translated as justice or righteousness. The fitte asetatim be mastamar, in being taught, being given the law, being given the administration, being given the order of the priesthood, as well as the burnt and the other offerings to present to Exyavi, to present to the true Elohei Israel. Going on, it says Sarata Menegistin, that the order of government as well, Amatu Yotor, his father-in-law, who was the priest, or we should say the high priest, but the priest of the Midianites, who were Hebrews descended from Abraham's third wife, Keturah, that this now was given to Musa le Aaron, le Hizbu Shemaga lewochim, and to the elders, the 70, some say, or 72 elders of the people, Hulu Masayatu. All this was shown to them, then in the Holy Scriptures. This is accounted for, this has been recorded within the Holy Scriptures. So we want to just go over this and share this part with you, as well as this calendar, you understand, as we seek to both show and prove that even in true Ethiopic documentation, and when we say true Ethiopic that which is faithful and consistent, that we can see how, according to this Ethiopian calendar, you understand, which is not the typical calendar of the church, because this particular Nebura Id, it is at odds with the present Ethiopic church, because it's not holding to the covenant, you understand, according to our true history and knowledge of self. So this brother here is almost like our own type of, for lack of a better word, I hope he's not offended if he hears this, the Nebura Id Eremius Kabeda Wod Jesus, but he's like a sort of a Martin Luther, so to speak. So it's similar in a sense to the Protestant Reformation. In other words, let's get back to the true basics. So this calendar, which is mostly in Bamarinya and some Gutas, is very well annotated, and we reference this here because we saw by the footnote that we just went through, read, and sought to give a basic translation of, that this particular month also covers and touches on Yotor, or Jethro, who was an Ethiopian, as well as Moses's father-in-law. So we wanted to put this as a basic reminder, foundation, to share this knowledge with our brothers and sisters. But we also need to get into this particular text, because we find that this 17th sabbatical study is very important, because a few things, I mean, this whole entire 54 or so Sabbaths, each sabbatical study is a reading, each one is a feeding. And even if you spend the next 5-6 days, even after the Sabbath, during the Sabbath, after the Sabbath, studying it, you will find that there is much to be learned. You understand? And much to be built up on. If you've already learned something or know something that is true, going over this with the proper discipline, according to the proper discipline, which means the proper discipleship and the proper discipleship keys. Now, what we would like to just go over once again is to go through a review of this present sabbatical study reading, along with a reference to another outside material that we find to be relevant and to provide us with additional information and material that's important. And this reference is from Samuel Sharp. Samuel Sharp, he wrote short notes to accompany a revised translation of the King James Bible. And here, Roman numeral XVIII, which is actually chapter 18 and 1, which is the beginning of this Shabbatical or Senbetawi or Sabbatical reading and feeding, which is called Yotor or Yithro, according to some of the Jewish pronunciation. The Ashkenazis will say Yithro, and some of the, I think, Sephardics might say Yithro or vice versa, but we say basically Yotor. In other words, Jethro's Ethiopic name is Yotor. But this is one of the basic keys in doing your studies. When you're going through a reading or feeding, after reading through it, you'll find certain words. You may find certain phrases that are difficult to understand or that you basically don't understand. It's good in your study book, in your copy book, which should be your composition notebook, and this is mainly for the Dek Mezamore, for the disciples, those who are taking these studies and reasonings and lectures and teaching seriously, and also are doing their own homework. It's very important as much as possible, and if you have internet access, then that might also allow you an expedited way to study, to look up some of these maybe words, especially the names. The names are very important to have at least a rudimentary, a working knowledge of the particular names. So what we did in the meantime was go over some of these names, and when we get into chapter 18, it's continuing on the theme, according to our Schofield Reference Bible, of redemption, the redemption experience, as well as leaning on the arm of flesh, has been put here as a subscription in the newer versions of the Schofield. It bases the visit of Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and that's the basic idea of Moses' father-in-law and the visit of Jethro to Moses. It begins off Besem Ab Weweld Wamenefes Kedus Ahadu Amlak Orit Ze Saat Mi'raf Asara Cement Ye Midyam Mimakahin Ye Muse Amata Yotor Egeziabi Herle Le Musena Le Hizbu Le Israel Yadaraga Winnuhulu Egeziabi Herima Israelina Kagibita and Awet Asama. When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, his Amat, heard of all that God had done for Moses, all that Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and that the Lord, or Elohim, Elohe Israel, had brought Israel out of Egypt, Beziana Gize, Yemuse Amata Yotora, Melisso Atam, Yenebrawina, Yemusena Mista, Siparan, Huletunima Lejochuana Wesede. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, his Ethiopian or Midianite wife, after he had sent her back, ka inarsu ye andenyao sima garisama nebre abatu belela agara sidetenya neberuhu below alna. And her two sons, of which the name of the one was Gershom or Gersam, for he said, I have been an alien in a strange land. So this helps to provide the name basically of one of the sons from the text, a stranger. Some translate Gersam as meaning a stranger is there. But now the deeper we go into the Kamite mythos and the wisdom of the Egypts, or the ancient Egyptian, the native ancient Egyptian, the black Egyptian, or the Kamite mythos, the closer we get to the real root of the matter. But for the Hebrew, or the Ibrawian Daraja, the Hebrew level, Gersam basically is said to mean a stranger being there, from the context of what Moses said that the children's father had said. In other words, the Ethiopian wife bore him 2 sons. Gersam, we learn about in verse 3, and in verse 4 it reads, Yehuletenya umasim ala azar nebre yabate amlaka redain kafer onima sefadanen below alina. And the name of the other was Eliezer, or Eleazar, for the God of my father, said he, was mine help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh, or Pharaoh, from Pharaoh's sword. Now, according to the mythos, this Pharaoh is not the Re, is not Ra, is not Re, it's not really even so much a human Pharaoh, but is speaking of that old dragon, or the Apophis, according to the Mishtir. But what's interesting about this is that when Moses returned to Egypt to engage, according to the story, the Hebrew Genesis, when he went to Egypt to engage Pharaoh to release his people, right, he already had these 2 sons. But notice the meaning of his 2 sons, especially the second son. And when we study the names, even Al-Azar, which in the New Testament is Lazarus, Eleazar, Asar, Azar, Asar is the Asar, or the Osiris, and the El in the Egyptian will be the Array. So El will be Array. So we have Array, Asar. We have both the father and the son's name there, or the Asar. You understand name when we put it within context of ancient Egypt and the ancient Egyptian wisdom. But the name already implies that he named his child Al-Azar, already being confident of the deliverance, you know what I'm saying, of being delivered from the sword of the Pharaoh, of the Duat, of the Pharaoh of the Lower Egypt, from the Apophis. Muse amata yotorim kalejochuna kamistugar beegezi abehertararat agab bemidre beda wode sefere wode muse meta. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness. So when Moses returned to Egypt, he left his wife, his Midianite, Ethiopian, Hebrew wife, with his father-in-law, who was the priest of his instruction into all of the mysteries of the Egypts, or that secret, one would say the Mishtir, or the wisdom of the Egypts, that Acts of the Apostles chapter 7, I think verse 22 says that he was learned in all the wisdom of it. So Jethro is not given his proper credit by many of the Eurocentrics, because they recognize it's hard to get around the fact that Moses' wife was an Ethiopian, therefore his father-in-law, called a Midianite, must also be an Ethiopian. The Ethiopians to the very day are known as black people. You see what I'm saying? They're the only ones who, as a people, have not, one of the ancient peoples who have not been so thoroughly whitewashed, even though the attempts to Aryanize them has been there and still exist. If some of you probably know what I mean here. But it's interesting because it says here now in verse 5 that Moses' father-in-law Jethro came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he encamped. Notice this. It says at the mouth of God. So this mountain was already known to be the mountain of God. Verse 6 says, Muse nim ene amatihi yotor mistihim ka'ar swamagar hulatule jochua metitena lehal alo. And he said to Moses, I, thy father-in-law, Jethro, am come to thee, and thy wife, and her two sons. Interesting, it says her two sons, not your two sons, but and her two sons with her. Verse 7, Musema amatuna liagananye uata sagadem samawim arisbarsacho wima dachinetacho wina teteyayaku ode din kwanuma gabu. It says, and Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and did obeisance. He prostrated, sagadem, and kissed him, samawim, and they asked each other their welfare, arisbarsacho wima dachinetacho wina teteyayaku, and they came in to the tent. Wada din kwanuma gabu. Now, that's verse 7, right? That's verse 7 of this first part of the reading. Now let's just compare some of these short study notes. So Jethro. Now we should define what the names mean. Jethro, his name in the Hebrew, or Yotor, means his abundance, his superiority, his preeminence, his excellence, his cords, implying, according to the metaphysical or the mystical interpretation, the nerves. Jethro, or Yithro, Yotor, the name Jethro, also means, according to its metaphysical interpretation or its more mystical interpretation. So we have the basic meaning, and then we also have the mystical or the metaphysical meaning. His cords, it implies the nerves and tendons. Now we know that Jethro was the priest of Midian. He was the father-in-law of Muse, or Moses. He's first introduced in Exodus chapter 3 and 1. He is called Jether in the margins of some Bibles at Exodus 4 and 18. And also there's a reference where we're at right now in Exodus chapter 18 from verses 1 to 12 concerning Moses' father-in-law. Now, metaphysically, Yotor means his excellence, his superiority, his abundance. Midian means judgment. So Midian means judgment. And Horeb or Koreb means solitude. Now, there's a mystical or metaphysical interpretation even of the name Yotor, Moses' Ethiopian father-in-law. Metaphysical Targum of Zetzat, chapter 3 and 1, just referring to the first time that Yotor is introduced, is that we have to go into the solitude of the inner and lead our flock of thoughts to the back of the wilderness, or the back portions of the Midr Beda, the wilderness where dwells the exalted one, or the Ahadu Amlak, the divine in their name, the divine Ehya Shara Ehya, the divine I am, whose kingdom, the true Mengist, is good judgment. The kingdom of the great I am, of Jah, or of Yah, is good judgment. There we are in training for 40 years, as Muse was in training for 40 years, or metaphysically interpreted the 40 years, until we arrive at a foresighted, a balanced state of mind, in a sense where the world, as Hawaria Paulo stated, where the world is crucified to us and we are crucified to the world, where the cross is also symbolic of this 40 years, of this four-sided, arriving at this four-sidedness, or this balanced state of mind. So we must understand within the context of this study, of this reading and growing in the word, the meaning of the name Yotor or Jethro. Who was Jethro? You understand, racially and ethnically. Racially, we can say he was an Ethiopian or Midianite. But yet when we go to Genesis, we find that Abraham, after Sarah died or passed on, that he married a third wife, and that was Keturah, and Midian descends from that relationship of Father Abraham and his third wife. So it's important now to understand that Jethro, who's also called Ruel by the so-called Elohistic writer in Exodus 2 and 18, he also has the Ethiopic name of Raguel. Now, Midian or Midian means judgment. So we know Midian and the Midianites originally were an Ethiopic and a Hebraic people. All right. Koreb or Horeb means solitude. Now, it's said that Zipporah means little bird, but we want to just teach exclusively on Zipporah and the importance of Moses' Ethiopian wife. So right now we're going to just cover the two sons. We have Gershom, the stranger is there, and Eleazar, which is the Hebrew Lazarus, or the Eleazar, you understand, or the El Asar, or El Osiris, or Ray Osiris name when we do the math on that. And the key verse in the connection with Eleazar is Exodus 18 verse 4, Ka Pharaonim Safe Adanaim, that he named this particular son to imply that he was saved from the sword, you understand, of Pharaoh, from the sword of Pharaoh. Now it's important to understand that we're not speaking of just a regular Pharaoh here. You understand, in context with the overstanding, when we take the veil from off our eyes, we're not speaking with just an average of an average Pharaoh. You understand? We're speaking of the Apophis here. You understand that he was saved from the Apophis, because we have to recognize that the Egypt that they came out of was a place of bondage, but more correctly, it was a place of spiritual bondage. So they had encamped now at the Mount of God, that they had went to what we know as Sinai, or what would later on be called Sinai, but it's very important in verse 5 that it's called the Mount, or the Mountain of God. Now the journey to this place is actually not mentioned until chapter 19, the next chapter, verse 2. Now some say that shows that this chapter, together with chapter 16, should be moved a little later. So there's some who argue about the placement of the different elements in the scripture. Now this belongs to a time after the arrival, you understand, at the Mount of God. But it's important to note that this mountain was already recognized as a holy place. You understand? So Jethro, or Yotor, Moses' Ethiopian wife, he was already a priest of the true and living God, even though he was not a, quote, Israelite. He was a Hebrew, and he was the one who instructed Mose, and Mose married into that particular family. Now what's also very important about this particular chapter, as far as what we have learned from it, is concerning the judges. This is often also called the chapter where captains, you understand, captains or chiefs, in a sense, were appointed, or certain select chosen men were appointed as judges. You understand, as judges. And it's around verse 25 that Moses, on the advice of his Ethiopian father-in-law, chooses able men so they may judge the people. What we have here is the basic foundation for the Mequanent, or what we will have later on, even in Psalm 68 verse 31, is the princes. Mequanent kagibit yuwat alochop iya jochua or the Exavier that princes shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands to God. So when we look at that Psalm 68, and the content of it, there is a reflection and a similarity that needs to be used, the comparative method, to compare what is in Psalm 68 with what is occurring right here in the Orit, or the Torah, you understand, concerning coming out of Egypt and concerning the Ethiopia connection, or the Ethiopian Hebrew connection. So now the appointment of judges seems to fix this chapter, says Samuel Sharp, to the reign, he says, of Jehoshaphat. You understand, to Jehoshaphat. And there's a reference to 2 Chronicles chapter 19 verses 5 to 11. Verses 5 to 11. Now in the next part of this, we're going to go into chapter 19, because it's at chapter 19 that the Mount of God, which is in the Sinai or Sinai, and the 10 commandments, or the 10 words, now comes into view. And it's a very important, it's a crucial area, because actually Revelation is a fulfillment, or is speaking of the fulfillment of this basic order, this basic sarat, this basic maseret foundation that is being laid now for that chosen people, for that kingdom of priests, for that holy nation.
The truth has overcome the lies, the good news of His Majesty in His Christ, and it is vital that we raise our tribal flag, the flag of the conquering lion of the tribe of Yehuda.
Millions of Christians throughout the world, Your Imperial Majesty, will regard you as the reincarnation of Jesus Christ.
Senbet Salam, Shabbat Shalom. This is the 17th Senbet, or Shabbat, within our order, within the true order of the Melchizedek of the line of Judah Society.